Yeah. I mean, you have there's a line that really struck me in the book where you say it's the very porous nature of American democracy that allows the Chinese strategy to work.
Right.
You know, they're sort of beating us at our own game. They're taking advantage of, the open markets.
They have a very deep understanding of how our system works. I remember 15 years ago meeting a Chinese guy who knew how to register a company in the Bahamas and do a reverse takeover of an American listed company. I mean, they understand our system so well, far better than we understand their system. So they are able to manipulate some of these institutions. Hollywood, for example, Hollywood studios want to sell in China. So Hollywood studios won't entertain any plot that portrays Chinese in a negative light because they can't sell that in the mainland. That turns out to be a more effective device than actually buying the studio because the Americans are self-censoring. So universities are co-opted because they're getting money from the Confucius Institutes and other arms of the Chinese government. And then when one of their professors says something critical about China, he gets banned, like Andrew Nathans at Columbia, who I interviewed for the book. So what does a university administrator do when one of their professors has been banned in China? Do they say, we're not going to do any business with you, or are we going to stop taking Chinese students? No, not a single university has retaliated against Chinese authorities for banning one of their professors. In other words, American universities are taking the money and agreeing to compromise their academic freedom.
It's actually quite shocking. They never protest, do they?
No.
And so many universities now have campuses in China, and certainly everybody has a large number of Chinese students.
There are 350 to 360,000 Chinese students at American universities. And so on the one hand, this is tremendous benefit for state-owned universities who have budgets are getting cut, or smaller universities whose funding is drying up. And these Chinese students, as undergraduates, work very hard. And they're very sophisticated about their technologies in particular, the STEM fields. And so it's been, where it gets sensitive is that some of these students go off and working at Berkeley or University of Maryland in advanced robotics or advanced materials, and they have cutting-edge knowledge. So some of them are recruited to go back to China. So, for example, Li Yuan works for the New York Times now. Do you know the name Li Yuan?
Yeah.
She had worked for the Journal at the time. So she went to an event in Silicon Valley where the head of China's semiconductor industry, the man in charge with developing a semiconductor industry in China, came to Santa Clara on the doorstep of Intel and gave a presentation to 300 Chinese-speaking students and researchers about, come to China, we'll triple your salaries, come back to China. So the people involved in the state-directed programs in China are coming here to lure back the talent. Others go to work for American institutions, and they may make genuine contributions forever, for their entire life. But a small subset get approached by the Ministry of State Security, and they say, you have access to this technology, we want it. And because they have family back in Beijing or in China, the Chinese government is able to force them, in effect, to do that. So the one case in particular was that of a Ministry of State Security official, Mr. Xu, who was in contact with a GE employee in the Cincinnati area who had secrets about how carbon fiber is used in the jet engine blades that General Electric makes. And he flew the young man to China. They had some nice exchanges, and he kept pumping him by email for more and more details. Finally, obviously, the young man in Cincinnati started working with the company and saying, I have a problem. The company called in the feds. So the young man in Cincinnati said, I'll meet you in Brussels. So the top executive of the top official of the MSS flew to Brussels. The Americans were waiting and arrested him as he tried to get these secrets about carbon fiber technology in GE jet engines. So the key body involved, it's clear beyond a shadow of a doubt that official bodies of China are involved in trying to get access to technology from Chinese or Chinese Americans working in American companies.
Mm-hmm. In some ways, though, again, as I'm saying, I was less shocked that the Chinese are doing that, but more upset that the U.S. is making it so easy.
Right.
And
right.
I mean, there's, I don't know, was it Michael Kinsley who said, the most shocking crimes are the ones that are not against the law? You look at the situation for these students who come, from China, they major in STEM, they're excellent students. Given the immigration policy of this country, it's difficult for them to stay. They're Chinese, they get good job offers in their home country in the fields that they've studied. Is this a kind of technology transfer? Should we be doing something differently? Because you can't really blame these students, and you can't blame the people who are hiring them either.
It falls within, that's fair game. If you send students to another country to study and you can persuade them to come home, that's fair game. I mean, the Indians do it, the Israelis do it. What's different about the Chinese program is that it's organized in the 1,000 Talents program. It's organized and systematic. But
Can you explain more about this 1,000 Talents program?
Well, they've identified the talents that they need to achieve their Made in China 2025 vision. They also have a variety of 5-year plans in different technological fields. So it's like hiding in plain sight. They have announced what they want. And they are going after it by then trying to identify people who have skills, Chinese people and Western people, who have these skills and who can then be brought back in to fill specific needs in these industries in China. We do it as well. We send our students abroad, and when they come home, we may benefit from the knowledge or the experience that they've achieved, but we don't do it in any kind of central government directed way. We do it in a much more open market way. I mean, our whole concept of open scientific research is at risk. The NIH case, may I mention that briefly?
Yeah.
NIH, as everyone knows, National Institutes of Health, spends $38 billion a year of taxpayer money conducting research on biotech and other areas. So they have a process called the peer review process. If Barbara has an idea and she sends it to the NIH, and NIH sends it to professors and other people in her given field who have expertise in that to evaluate it. Well, some of these people that they've been sending the proposals to for review have been Chinese or Chinese Americans who then take the ideas contained in those pitches, what am I calling them? Pitches? Proposals. Yep. And then opening up shadow factories back in China to try to take advantage of that content within those proposals without telling anybody. It's doing it secretly. So this story broke last summer. So what is the NIH supposed to do? How can they walk away from their open scientific review policies? How can they tighten that up? It's going to be very, very difficult for them to change their whole research model because of this abuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, our whole model is predicated on certain values of openness and trust.
Yeah, and also outsourcing. I mean, all our technology is outsourced. I mean, how many iPhones are in this room?
Right.
They're all basically made with Chinese components.
Well, the Chinese value added is maybe 10 to 15%. A lot of the value added is Japanese, Korean. The Germans make the cameras. So they've created this global manufacturing platform where they supply the labor and they create the supply chain, but the majority of the value added in an iPhone is not Chinese content.